Does Washington have a top 10 defense?
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into another edition of the Locked On Huskies podcast. I'm Roman Tomashoff. That's Lars Hanson. He's site editor with Athlon Sports' Inside the Huskies. I'm the site editor with Huskies Wire. Thank you for making this your first watch or first listen of the day, as we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Lars, we got a really fun show where we talk about some of the unofficial visitors that we spotted, just some of the different recruiting things that we saw going on after Washington's and during Washington's first Big Ten game. We're talking about dealing with a short week, traveling across the country to Rutgers, how that might affect the team a little bit. But Lars, we need to have a conversation about Washington's defense. You and I, throughout fall practice on this show, talked about how high this defense can fly in terms of the scheme, some of the talent that's brought in. And first of all, right now, at 1 minute and 15 seconds, for anybody in the comments saying, oh, look at who they played, we know they've played Weber State, Eastern Michigan, Wazoo, and Northwestern. We got it. But the stats are really, really good, especially when you consider last year's defense was still allowing plenty of points at this point in the year. They got the job done when they needed to, but they didn't have these numbers. Shout out to Tony Castricone by this, for all these numbers, by the way, putting these together. Washington is second in the FBS in completion percentage, 43.3. They've allowed 3 touchdowns. All those came in one game, by the way. 4th in the FBS in lowest opposing quarterback rating, 7th in fewest yards allowed per pass attempt. They are 9th in total yards per play allowed, 11th in total defense, and 11th in scoring defense. Lars, that's an elite unit. Doesn't matter who you're playing. You can only play who's across from you, but that's an elite unit.
It really is. I mean, the other thing to consider with this, and if you think about it from the offensive side of the ball, you're implementing a brand new scheme. Now, necessarily, is there some carryover? I'm sure there's some language that goes into it. But yeah, it doesn't matter who you're playing. And, each team has kind of presented their own. Cole Sida was a serviceable dual threat quarterback. Obviously, John Mateer proved how good he can be. And obviously comes away with a loss. But again, you still hold him to 62, 65 yards. So you're not looking at and saying, even in good competition, we got hosed. You're like, no. Yeah, you had a couple breaks, but then you came back the next week against a powerful opponent and fixed it. Simple as that. Like, that's all you can do. Now, again, as you prefaced, sure, is this defense going to finish in the top 10 at the end of the season? Probably not. But are they going to fall from grace and fall into like the 50s and 60s? No. I think that is the takeaway here, and that's the point, is look where this defense is now through 4 games. Think about the adjustments that still can be made. And you're talking about, again, as I said on the show, but the postgame show, you didn't have your full arsenal. You really still don't even have your full arsenal. Now, again, you can have your feelings about, certain guys who are playing, who are not. But just think about this defense when, talk about Rutgers. When you add Zach Durfee back into the equation, when you add a fully healthy Carson Bruener, not that he wasn't healthy in the Northwestern game, as I'm saying, but pretty fair to say, given his snap count, was not at 100% health. Carson still at 80% is better than most people at 50% or 100%. So it doesn't really matter. But you have all the pieces there to still improve. And the one thing that makes this defense promising moving forward is the veteran presence of it. You have a lot of guys. Now, yes, Kamari House holding it down as a true freshman. Jordan Shaw, my word, I will continue to beat that drum as a redshirt freshman. But even then, you're talking about juniors and seniors across the board, whether it's Voy, whether it's, Durfee, whether it's Isaiah Ward, it doesn't matter who it is. All these guys can find a way to produce. And so, yeah, they haven't really played anybody besides Washington State, if you want to call it that. But again, you still play who's in front of you. And here's the thing. If this defense gave up, let's say 300 yards and you'd say 14 points, 17 points past couple of games, aside from the Wazoo game, that would be a cause for concern because, wait, you should be dominating these lesser teams. So, yeah, you're checking the box, but it also proves to say, hey, when you play against a Big Ten team, yeah, granted it's the Stanford of the Big Ten, but you still do what you need to do. That game was never really close. And the red zone to me is where this team makes its bread and butter.
Oh, it thrives. So that's one of the reasons I'm so excited about this week matchup. We got some questions. We got a couple Rutgers fans in the comments. Welcome if you want to, just check out the other side of things from this week. I'm really excited about this Rutgers game where, it could go really well, could go really poorly. We'll talk about that more as the week goes on. And one of the reasons that we wanted to lead with this so early in the week, especially with it being a short week, is Lars, Rutgers is 4th in the Big Ten in offense, in yards per game. They're gaining 471 yards a game. They got a really nice balanced attack. They got 767 rushing yards, 646 passing yards. They're doing really well on the offensive side of the ball. So it's very safe to say that this is a bigger test than Washington State, which, as you said, they did a really good job of containing for the most part. The offense didn't come through, where 24 points should be enough to win most games. It wasn't. We can't harp on that. We can't go back and change that. But when I look at this defense, as you said, yeah, top 10 might be a little rich by the end of the year, but top 20 is very achievable with some of the offenses they have to play. Especially, Michigan is not a very good offense in terms of yards per game right now on the schedule. Iowa's still in front of them. Where the more I look at this, Rutgers, again, it's going to be a really fun test where containing Kyle Monangai, their unbelievable running back, is going to be the key. That's going to be the biggest thing. And this is going to be in terms of, how high this unit can go. I think it might depend on how well they do against Kyle Monangai, where if they show, yeah, we can shut this guy down, I think that we can come on this show and safely say, yeah, maybe this defense really can be top 10. And if, he has a solid day or runs all over him, okay, yeah, got to back off a little bit. But right now, from what Washington has done with who they've played and how they've been able to contain some of these offenses, no matter how good or bad they might be, you look at that scheme and you say, yeah, this is really tough for some of these opposing offenses to figure out.
Absolutely. Well, and the other thing, again, you want to point out some things. Let's point out some things. So who is Rutgers played? Like when you put up the offensive stats, you can say
Virginia Tech
about Washington. No. But that's my point. Virginia Tech represents Washington State on Washington's schedule. You have Akron and Howard as your other two opponents.
Sure.
So again, you talk about Weber State and Eastern Michigan. It's the same sort of thing. So again, this is a type of matchup. It's a step up from the Northwestern game, no doubt about it. But this isn't jumping from Northwestern to Ohio State or Northwestern to Michigan. Now, again, you got Michigan the following week, so we'll see how that goes. But again, that's the thing about the Big Ten. I think there's going to be some Pac-12 elements to it where you look at a game and you think, hey, you know what? This game should be kind of a 2-touchdown, 3-touchdown game, and it ends up being a 1-possession game. I think that kind of screams to just what Washington plays at, where it's, look, this defense is proven through 3 games. No matter where we start on the field, we can start on the 2.
Yeah.
Our own 2. Points. And give up less yards than where the ball is spotted. And again, say what you want to about Northwestern. If it was Weber State, that's a different story, right? That stand doesn't look as impressive. But it's Northwestern. And again, I still say, yeah, it's Northwestern, but it's Northwestern. It's a Power 4 team. It's a Big Ten team. Cal was the same way. Arizona State was the same way. It's like, hey, you know what? There's still good talent on those teams. Yeah, you should probably rout them by 21 or 28. There's still good talent on those teams. And so to me, you take a lot from it, but also we're not setting the bar at, hey, this is what to expect from the Washington defense. We know what the expectations are. It's probably in that 10 to 20 range of, ranking in terms of defense being top 10 and top 20. No worse than 25. And I look at the Rutgers game, it's almost a perfect matchup because if you think about where this defense has struggled, it's been either a mobile quarterback or at times, one-on-one outside. The running game really, aside from one game, hasn't necessarily been that big of a problem. Now, again, biggest test of the season so far coming up. But again, you're talking about confidence going into the game across the country. I mean, defense travels. That's the one thing. Defense travels. Offense doesn't. Defense does.
And, they're going to have to travel, Lars. They're going across the country. They're going to Piscataway. And let's talk about how they're going to deal with a short week, which we'll get you right after a message from our good friends over at FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page when you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. And, with that being said, I know it was obvious, but shout out to the Seahawks. They did what they were supposed to today against a Miami team that did not look great. Skylar Thompson, that's what we came on here and said, hey, take that Seahawks money line. They're 3-0. They're first place in the NFC West. We love to see that. Are they the Locked On Huskies team of the year? Not quite yet, but we're getting there. We're getting close, especially, the Ryan Grubb effect is real. We love to see all that. And you should seriously go check out their odds of winning the NFC West over on FanDuel. So, Lars, that was a wonderful segue from you. Shout out to you for that. But we got to talk about dealing with a short week. Everything has moved up today. Where we talked to Jedd Fisch after the game on Saturday, and he told us what the plan for the week is. He said they're going to treat it like they're playing on Monday Night Football, which that's one of the things I like about the staff. We'll get in, the whole NFL thing and everything. But this is something Jedd has had to do many times in his career. I don't know if he's had to travel like this to do that. We haven't gone game by game through his 20 teams in 20 years. But when we go back and we look at his repertoire, he's had to do this many times, playing on short weeks in the NFL on Sundays, preparing for Thursday night games, which is, as tough as this is going to be, that's tougher in terms of recovery, in terms of what you're allowed to do practice-wise. Because there's also less time. But when we look at what this is going to be, getting one less day of rest is going to be tough for both teams, but going across the country is going to be really difficult. So what he said they're going to do is they're going to get Sunday off. They're going to practice in the evening on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to get their bodies acclimated to, just get used to playing late at night. It's going to be an 8:00 kickoff local time, 5:00 for us here on the West Coast. And I like the strategy. They're going to fly out Thursday. They're only going to spend the one day, getting ready before the game. And I think that's going to work out pretty well in terms of, just getting your body acclimated, that sort of thing. But this is, we talked about the defense being a tough test, but just for the players in general, this is one of the reasons that people had problems with moves to the Big Ten, because this is a conference game. So this is something that's going to have to happen probably once a year, and you're going to have to get used to it, whether you like it or not.
I wonder if Jedd's going to call Peterson, get some tips on that Rutgers trip. Because again, people forget.
Same thing. Friday night. Yeah, Friday night, 7 years ago.
Yep. And so, to me, and I say that tongue in cheek, because the furthest to answer your question, and I know Jedd's going to do this tomorrow or on Monday when we talk to him. Well, actually, I've already talked to him. I guarantee Jedd will have said this by the time people are listening to this. I guarantee he's going to reference one of his NFL teams as an example for this. But as a head coach at Arizona, the furthest he traveled was to Mississippi State.
Right.
So this will now be a big test. However, kind of curveball here, going back to Jedd's hometown, going back to Jedd's home state. So Jedd is from New Jersey. People forget Jedd's from New Jersey. He's got that Jersey accent that comes out every now and then, which I love. But this is a true test for Jedd, because he said this, and it's interesting because I'm not sure how you thought about it, but when his views on walkthroughs, where he's like, yeah, we don't really care about walkthroughs. We don't really do field walkthroughs. We do it in the hotel, do it wherever. It doesn't really matter. We don't do it on the field. So it's really more about getting the body acclimated, which is why I like that they're going out there on, I believe, you said they're going out there Thursday.
They're flying out Thursday morning. Yeah, that's what Jedd told us.
Which checks out. That'll be, you get the all day, because you get most of the day Thursday and then Friday morning, but you're not doing it where you're going out 2 days in advance, because that's almost too much. And they're doing the same thing for Iowa. They're doing the same thing for, I believe, Penn State, where they're going out a day in advance just to kind of, but I think one thing Jedd's learned in his time throughout the NFL and in football, you can almost overcompensate in that regard. Where if you go out there a day and a half early and now you're kind of antsy waiting for the game, that shows up in the game. I think that's a perfect, because you're going to land in New Jersey probably around 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 5 p.m. Perfect, which actually would be perfect, because then now you acclimate that night, you sleep, you wake up the next morning, your body's refreshed on East Coast time. You're playing on East Coast time already, waking up on East Coast time, and now you're actually more mentally in tune. That has been a problem with Washington teams in the past, where and we say that about the Seahawks too, where it's, traveling all the way out to Miami or traveling all the way out to Carolina. Sometimes you start a little slow. I think this is a perfect recipe to avoid as much that as possible.
So I certainly hear what you're saying there, where I certainly thought about it in that light a little bit, but I think the short week is a little more important than the long trip, where that's one of the things where it's, how are you going to handle not having a day of rest, where the two are just a perfect mesh of a really long, terrible trip with one less day. And that's why I like just having this staff and the way that they might be in tune with it, with so much, NFL background, with Steve Belichick having to do this before, Vinny Sunseri having to do this before, Jedd, same thing, where all these guys who have worked in the NFL for a long time know what it takes to handle this and overcome it. And I think that that's going to be a really important aspect of it, because we know this is a really well-coached Rutgers team, and we know they're going to be prepared for this too. Where I think I do trust this coaching staff to have the right game plan for this, but it's just a matter of making sure your players are physically and mentally prepared because for a lot of them, this is the longest trip they've ever had to take. I'm sure for all of them, it might be the longest trip they've ever had to take to play a football game. So, like, outside of shout out Lance Holtzclaw, who probably had to do the Boston to Seattle flight, which is one of the very few that's longer from, where we are in terms of a domestic flight. So there are not a lot of guys that have maybe had to take this trip. And I think about that and I say, all right, that is thing number one for me, because if you are physically and mentally prepared for this game, this coaching staff, as we just talked about with the defense, is going to have a plan in place to make sure that they can execute. You just have to be ready.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's kind of the other side of the equation of letting certain guys rest, not playing Carson as much against North, because knowing that you have that short week coming up. Hey, you know what? He could have gone today, but we need him because we think if we can do it without him against this team, we know we're going to need him against this team. So it's a lot of long-term and short-term planning going on. But also, it kind of just speaks to, like, look, there's enough talent on this team to make those exceptions work. You can get away with not playing Carson as much because you have a Kamori. And it speaks to exactly what you're saying. This coaching staff, Kalen was good in his own right and, how to do certain things. And I think Jedd having that NFL background, as you were saying that, I know for a fact Jedd made the New England to Seattle trip when he was with the Patriots in 2020. I just don't know what the West Coast
that's right.
I don't think Jedd's done the West Coast trip. And by the way, Rutgers fans, anybody listening that lives on the East Coast, Roman, you know this as well as anybody, that west to east, much harder, much easier than east to west.
Yeah.
Because when you lose it coming back, it sucks. But going there, I think that's what's actually going to be playing in Washington's favor, even though it's a short week. But also, short stack, look at the spread. Like, I don't think that's necessarily a problem. I don't think, when you look at early in the season now, let's say, also, because I think Rutgers, I almost thought Rutgers was coming off a bye, but they played yesterday. So they're coming off the same situation. And to me, if the travel, if you can negate the travel and make it an even playing field, now you just got to worry about the home crowd, which to me,
it's gonna be a fun crowd too, because Jedd said they're doing the blackout.
No, but that's kind of where my fear lies in this game, which we'll get more to during the week. The offensive line, the cadence, the snaps, and the crowd.
Yeah,
that scares me. That with Lumen was not a neutral field. Let's be clear.
No, but also one thing there that Jedd did mention that they turned up the music last week at practice to work more on that. I think that'll be something we see a lot more of this week as well. Because you're right, that is going to be a factor where this is the first true road test. Where that needs to be something that also is mentioned in the same light. Where along with the travel, along with all these things, what is that routine for all these guys going to look like now? Where, again, with such a new team, with so many, new guys on this roster and a new coaching staff, it's going to be a little different. And how are they going to adjust to that? How is that all going to factor in? And I know I sound like a broken record and I keep coming back to the same point, but that's one of the things I like about this coaching staff is they've drilled this. They've done this even, for a home game when they did the mock game right before the start of the season. They did that after leaving from the hotel. They spent the time at the hotel. They did all that, where just those little things. And that's why, Jedd is making such an investment into some of these off-field issues with, with things like the Go Big campaign and all that, where he wants to make sure all the little details and all the off-season, like just the nutrition, the training, the recovery, all these things are as good as they can get for trips like this, which I think is a really good idea. And Lars, as you said, having guys like Zach Durfee who can, hopefully be back for this week. Jedd said he's very hopeful that he's going to do that. That's a big factor as well.
Exactly. And the others, there's just, you look at all of this, and this is why you go out and get a guy like Jedd, but also because he's going to hold the program to a higher accord. I'm not saying Kalen didn't, but it's just you want to keep, like, Jedd now has to live up to a national championship. That's what he's tasked with, whether like it or not. That is the task, and that's a good problem to have. And throughout the first 4 games, I don't think there's anybody better that they got a guy. You look, Kansas State lost, look at some other ones where it's like, okay, yeah, Jedd 3-1, but I think that one was a rivalry game, which you kind of just chalk up to being a rivalry game.
I certainly see where you come from there, but that was what we said at the time too, right? Was when this hire was made, was you look around the country and you can't make a better hire, especially at this point in the game. And Lars, one of the reasons it was such a good hire was everything that he's been able to do on the recruiting trail. And we saw some big time visitors, one that I don't think got out there yet either, which we'll get to right after a message from our friends over at Game Time, because Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets, which is great news for any Husky fans who want to attend the National Championship rematch on October 5th, because Washington only has 3 home games left this year. I know it's weird to think about, but there are only 3. There's Michigan, there's USC, and there's UCLA. And a great way to find those tickets is on Game Time, because the Game Time Picks curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. They're all in pricing. When you toggle this feature, it shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkouts. And with their seat view, you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets at the Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKDOWNCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So, Lars, one thing you and I like to do before games is peruse the sidelines. We'll hang out, we'll see. And there were some big-time visitors that we knew were going to be there, right? Shout out to Kevin Casabelos, who does a really good job over with C-Town Sports. He talked to Jake Flores, to CJ Wallace, knew they were going to be there. On 3 and 247 put out that Madden Faraimo was going to be there. One guy who I'm standing there with Alex Katzen and Ben Glassmeyer, and shout out to our Lockdown Huskies insiders. We shot them a text about this, as soon as we got a chance, saying, hey, just heads up. Another guy who's here, 4-star tight end Vander Ploog. I was standing there with Alex and Ben. We're like, hey, that's Vander Ploog right there. So a lot of big time visitors, and that one, especially where there were some people concerned about his Oregon offer, his Alabama offer, that seems like a good sign there. But Lars, the Madden Faraimo news is just massive. They're able to get him back on campus.
Yeah, I was gonna say when you were going through that, I was like, you just kind of glossed over Madden Faraimo. No, I know you didn't, but it was one of those. And you're like, did you know who we saw? It was Vander Ploog, and I'm like, that's great. Like, I'm not surprised Vander's still solid on his commitment. It's not about Madden. Like that's right. Also,
we knew he was going to be there. That's the whole thing. Yeah,
right. No, but it takes me back to my conversation with Jake Flores after he committed. I was like, hey, who are you going to be targeting? And he just said Madden. And I'm like,
yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
And the fact that, and I think that's one of those where, again, this is something we said over the summer where you can not land guys in the sense that, let's say, because Madden committed to USC and call it what it is.
Oh, yeah. Then he backed off. Yeah.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. We committed and backed
my
off.
bad. I was like, wait, no, he didn't. Yeah.
But that was the point. It's building those relationships. And some guys, and by the way, the more talented guys that you're in play for are probably going to be making decisions, like final decisions, later and later and later and later. In that respect, now you want to get him back for an unofficial visit because you already had him for an official. So you already check some of these boxes and say, hey, look, you can just come up with your family. We don't need you to do the whole thing. We already got that relationship piece down. Just come experience a game. And I think you're going to see that with some other guys throughout this class that are committed to other programs. I won't name names, but I'm just going to be specific in saying that's why you build those relationships early on in the process. And you don't sweat whether, okay, you know what, he committed to so-and-so and it's April, May, June, July, whatever you want to say it. But he still likes me and we're still connecting and we're still communicating. He hasn't said, okay, coach, please stop texting me or whatever. No. They wanted, a lot of these guys, both on offense and defense, but more so on defense, wanted to see what the Belichick defense was. Because it's one thing to say, hey, Steve Belichick's your defensive play coordinator. But we love it, right? We love throwing the Belichick name out there anytime. Yeah, I know, I know, obviously. I obviously know you do. But it's one thing to say, hey, come look at this NFL show. We're the 33rd team, all this and that's like, cool. I can be cool. Okay, to Paul Mankey, I'm like, hey, Baby Belichick? Of course. Yeah, I would love that to be my defense play caller. But how does it actually look? Does it actually translate? Do his players like playing for him? 100% yes on all that account. Like that's like I don't know if you saw it, but the reaction that he had to Parham's roughing the passer. It's
it was wonderful. Wonderful.
But I think coach guys and high level recruits, not the low levels don't, but truly elite caliber players like playing for coaches that get pissed like that. Belichick is so cerebral, and I think that's why guys, once this defense gets into the heart of Big Ten play, it's like, oh, maybe you beat Michigan, maybe you beat Iowa, and it's like, hey, I got a Washington offer.
Sure,
coach, that offer still committable? Absolutely, It is. You know, and so when because again, you talk about the number of 85 to 105, you can find some room now.
Yep. That's a big thing where, you know, look at the Jack Schaefer commit. That was a really nice one. And I like there are so many different things where it's, oh yeah, late in the process, like getting a guy like that. That's a nice little flip. Maybe we see one or two more of those, not putting any predictions out there, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at this point with the way the staff recruits. And I want to talk about Madden just in terms of what he would add to this linebacker class, man. Where, you know, I was texting with our buddy Ben Glassmeyer a little bit earlier. With Zadrius Randy Sale had a really nice pick in their game against North Creek on Friday, and it's just I was telling him, man, like, call me crazy, I still think he's going to play in every game in 2025. Like that's just where I see it. He's that big, that physical, that talented. I'd love to see that. And you think about the other linebackers in that class. We talked about Jonathan Epperson. We've talked about Donovan Robinson. If you add Madden Faraimo to that, like, all of a sudden, yeah, we know you're losing 4 linebackers. You're losing 4 seniors. I love Carson Bruener. Alphonzo Tuputala has been arguably better this season. Like you love that. Brian Parham has been really good. And Drew Fowler, obviously, unfortunately, he's been hurt, but he was solid before he went down.
Yeah, exactly.
No, sorry. No, I sorry. I was just like kind of pausing for dramatic effect there. All of a sudden, like, oh, like, yeah, it's a bummer that those guys are gone, but you look at the crop of talent you're bringing in and you're like, yeah, no, I'm so ready for Big Ten play with these 4 guys.
And I think in a way that it's not similar to, I didn't mean to step on you there because it was good.
No, you're good. You're good.
Good effect there. But it's not necessarily the same light of Schaefer where you look at him as a 3-star, because Madden's a 4-star, guaranteed lock 150, all that. Like you're good there. But it's the same principle of, as you broke down that, well, Epperson's really more of a star nickel Husky, not a true inside linebacker.
Sure.
Not that he can't. And same thing with Donovan Robinson, where Bala wants him to start out a linebacker, coming back and potentially dropping out to safety. You need that second linebacker next to ZRS to say, look, here's 2 4-stars right here in the middle, and you add them to the rest of the other 2.
So exactly your point, because I want to talk about Epperson there for a second. But do you know who else isn't necessarily a true inside linebacker that I was just enamored with in coverage that you just mentioned? Kamori House. There were a couple of plays where Kamori House was like, they just walked him out to the nickel, and he was absolutely phenomenal in coverage. Where that's just part of what this defense is. Where I know I've talked about it a million times, where, you know, Donovan Robinson, you know who's not necessarily a true safety, but plays mostly that, but walks down to the box? Kyle Duggar in New England. Same thing with, you know, body type, all that sort of stuff that we talked about a lot on this program. Jabril Peppers, same thing, where it's about just fitting that scheme with those body types, those really talented athletes that, you know, as Jabril's a little undersized in terms of his height, where Duggar's a little bit on the bigger side, but they fit that scheme. They fit that body type, that athleticism that they're looking for, and they do their job really, really well. And that's what those guys with that athleticism and with those body types can do very well in this defense as well.
Exactly. And the ironic part of that is Jabril Peppers, I believe, is from New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken.
You're correct.
Michigan. Went to Michigan. So look, that's the idea here. You're talking about going into new territory this week, maybe potentially impressing some new recruits. They've offered some guys in New Jersey, but everything starts with, you know, the homestay guys. But that's what I kind of like is, and it's not that I don't think Epperson can be a linebacker. I don't want to insinuate that, but I just see him more as a Husky, especially with that side, because again, it doesn't preclude him from coming down, making those plays similar to Kamori. But when you look at the way and by the way, I love when you were like making those comps. The reason why I brought up the Peppers pass was because when you asked Belichick, like, hey, is this like, so do you get visions of so-and-so? You mentioned some Patriots guys.
He's never going to tell me yes.
No. And so I just love that though, because when you were like, hey, it's about fitting the body types. I'm like, yeah, ask Steve that one more time. I want to see if the answer changes.
I will ask him every week.
Well, I mean, again, Jedd's answers change every now and then, so who knows? Maybe you will. But with that respect, in that respect, you're absolutely right. It's getting the elite body types, not just because you can go across the country and find 6'2", 6'3" guys, and no shot at Chris Peterson here, but the old Peterson method of, hey, you know what? He's a 3-star. We're going to coach him up and develop him, and he's going to be a 4-year guy. It's like, yes, but you can also get 3 or 4 other dudes just like him. You don't have to make him. Let me use the Ben Burke-Herbert example. You don't have to make Ben a 4-year starter. You can bring Camilo Eifler in and play him. You don't have to have that guy sit. But yeah, I need to get that off my chest because I had a conversation with somebody who mentioned Camilo a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, yeah, great.
I'm sorry. I need to shut you down right now. That name just, man, he's so talented. That just makes me sad.
But that's why we love the staff. Because they don't have that limit. They don't have the, oh, hey, we already got ZRS in this. We can't take another guy to potentially threaten him. It's no, talent attracts talent.
Yes.
Like when those guys committed, they all committed around the same time. It wasn't like, oh, if Zadrius takes my spot, I don't want to go there. Madden's not saying, oh, because Zadrius is there, I don't want to be there. No. Actually, because Zadrius is there, I want to be there. I just want to give myself a little more time. He's an in-state guy who you had all 9 assistant coaches go to Bethel High School the day of the first recruiting period in May.
Right.
So it's a little bit different situation, but all in all, everything is there for Washington to be had on the recruiting trail. They're at 19 right now. Would not be surprised to see them finish at or above that slightly, not above 15, but I'm saying in that 20 to 15 range.
Lars, as always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all the viewers tuning in. We really do appreciate your support. And thank you so much for making Locked On Huskies your first listen today. Now for your second listen, find Locked On College Football. From NIL deals, never-ending conference realignment rumors. Our guy Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. You can find the link to Locked On College Football on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast, and it's down in the description below, so you don't need to do too much searching there. And just a reminder to everybody, we're on all social media platforms now. That's Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, everywhere you want to go find us at Locked On Huskies. We're going to be sharing so much fun stuff from practices we're at, games, behind the scenes, and we're on the field. We might be taking a road trip or two this year. We're going to make sure you get some fun stuff from the field or wherever it is that we get to go, which is just a wonderful benefit of this job. And one of many, many reasons we love doing this and love sharing it with you every day. Also, check out our Locked On Huskies Insider Program. The link to that is down in the description below. You get a 2-week free trial. After that's $4.99 a month. We're dropping, like I said, the Vander Ploog rumor. As soon as we get that is in your text message inbox. You can also get the ability to ask us any questions you might want. We do exclusive Q&As. We got a Google Drive that we update with content whenever we get a chance. There's so much fun stuff over there. Again, the link to that is down in the description below as well. And with that being said, if you enjoy what we have to offer, make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, we're there. We're everywhere. We're updating this content every single day. So make sure to click that like button, click the little bell so you never miss when we post a new video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, drop them right down below in the comment section. And if you're audio only, please leave us a 5-star review, as it does help us out a lot. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you on Tuesday.